The principal time of the American sci-fi awfulness show TV series More Peculiar Things debuted overall on the web-based feature Netflix on July 15, 2016. 1. The series was made by the Duffer siblings, who likewise act as leader-makers alongside Shawn and Dan Cohen. This season stars Winona Ryder, David Harbour, Finn Wolfhard, Millie Bobby Brown, Gaten Matarazzo, Caleb McLaughlin, Natalia Dyer, Charlie Heaton, Cara Buono, and Matthew Modine, with Noah Schnapp, Joe Keery, and Shannon Purser in repeating jobs. The principal time of More Peculiar Things got widespread praise, specifically for its inventiveness, references to the 1980s, portrayal, tone, visuals, and acting, especially that of Ryder, Harbour, Wolfhard, Brown, and Modine. Part 1. The Vanishing of Will Byers. In November 1983 in Hawkins, Indiana, a researcher is gone after by a concealed animal at a U.S. government lab. 12-year-old Will Byers experiences the animal and strangely evaporates while cycling home from a prisons and winged serpents meeting with his companions Mike Wheeler, Dustin Henderson, and Lucas Sinclair. Will's single-parent Joyce Byers reports his vanishing to the police boss Jim Container, who begins a hunt and guarantees Joyce that practically all missing youngsters are immediately found. The lab's chief Dr. Martin Brenner examines a natural substance overflowing from the lab's cellar, guaranteeing that the young lady can't have gone the distance. An apprehensive little kid wearing an emergency clinic outfit meanders into a nearby coffee shop. The proprietor, Benny, gains from a tattoo of 011 on her arm that she is 11. Brenner, observing the telephone lines, sends specialists to the burger joint after Benny calls social administrations. The specialists kill Benny, however 11 figures out how to avoid utilizing supernatural capacities. Joyce's telephone short-circuits in the wake of getting a baffling call that she accepts is from Will. While looking for Will in the forest, Mike, Dustin and Lucas go over 11. Part 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street. The young men carry 11 to Mike's home, where they differ on what to do. Mike devises a game plan for 11 to claim to be a runaway and look for help from his mom, Karen. In any case, 11 denies, uncovering that awful men are after her. Will's sibling Jonathan visits his alienated dad Lonnie in Indianapolis to look for Will, however Lonnie rebukes him. Container's inquiry party finds a piece of emergency clinic outfit close to the lab. Subsequent to perceiving Will in a photo and showing her supernatural power, 11 persuades the young men to trust her, as they accept she could track down Will. Utilizing the prisons and winged serpents board, 11 shows that Will is on the topsy-turvy side of the board and is being pursued by the Demogorgon, the animal. Mike's sister Nancy and her companion Barbara Point Holland show up for a party with Nancy's sweetheart, Steve Harrington. Looking for Will approach Steve's home, Jonathan covertly photos the party. Joyce gets one more call from Will, hears music playing from his sound system, and sees the animal getting through the wall. Let be by the pool, Spike is gone after by the Demogorgon and disappears. Part 3, Holly, Jolly. Point stirs in the topsy-turvy, a rotting, congested substitute aspect. She endeavors to get away, yet is gone after and killed by the Demogorgon. Joyce accepts Will is conveying through beats and lights. Brenner permits Container to see doctored security film from the night Will evaporated, driving Container to research Brenner, finding his inclusion with Task MKUltra, a CIA try into the indoctrinating capability of psychoactive medications, and that a lady named Terry Ives claimed years sooner that Brenner took her little girl. 11 reviews Brenner, whom she calls father, rebuffing her for declining to supernaturally hurt a feline. Steve obliterates Jonathan's camera in the wake of finding the photographs from the party. Nancy later recuperates a photograph of Spike it is missing to understand that she. Getting back to Steve's home to explore, Nancy experiences the Demogorgon, however figures out how to get away. Joyce paints an alphabetic board on her wall with Christmas lights, permitting Will to sign to her that he is here and that she wants to run. Accepting 11 knows where Will is, the young men request that she lead them to him. 11 leads them to Will's home, to their disappointment. From that point, they follow crisis vehicles to a quarry, similarly as Will's evident body is recuperated from the water. Section 4, The Body. Joyce won't really accept that the body found at the quarry is Will's. Mike feels double-crossed by 11 until she demonstrates that Will is as yet alive, directing his voice through Mike's walkie-talkie. The young men speculate that 11 could utilize a ham radio at their school to speak with Will. Nancy sees a figure behind Point in Jonathan's photograph, which Jonathan acknowledges matches his mom's depiction of the Demogorgon. Nancy educates the police regarding Spike's vanishing. She later battles with Steve, who just thinks often about not crossing paths with his dad. Container has doubts with respect to the genuineness of the body found in the quarry when he discovers that the standard coroner was sent home. Container goes up against the state officer who found it and beats him until he concedes he was requested to lie. The young men slip 11 into their school to utilize the radio, while Joyce hears Will's voice on her lounge room wall. Tearing away the backdrop, she sees him. 11 purposes the radio to channel Will conversing with his mom. Container goes to the funeral home and observes that the body is a sham and, thinking that Brenner is mindful, breaks into the lab. Section 5, The Flea and Acrobat. Container looked through the lab, tracking down the substance in the cellar, prior to being taken out by the lab's watchman. The young men ask their science instructor, Mr. Clark, on the off chance that it would be feasible to go between substitute aspects, to which he responds to that there could be a hypothetical entryway between aspects. Container stirs at his home and finds a secret mouthpiece, understanding that Joyce was correct the entire time. The young men follow their compasses, trusting that a door would upset the world's electromagnetic field. 11 reviews recollections of being set in a tangible hardship tank to snoop on a man communicating in Russian clairvoyantly. While tuning in, she went over the Demogorgon. Dreading one more experience with the Demogorgon, 11 diverts the compasses. Lucas confuses this as a demonstration of disloyalty, driving Mike and Lucas to battle and 11 to supernaturally throw Lucas off Mike. While Dustin and Mike watch out for the oblivious Lucas, 11 runs off. Nancy and Jonathan figure out how to kill the Demogorgon. Looking through in the forest, they experience an injured deer. Nancy follows it through a door to the topsy-turvy, causing it to notice her. Part 6, The Monster. Jonathan gets Nancy back through the entryway. That evening, Nancy is hesitant to be separated from everyone else and requests that Jonathan stay in her room. Steve, endeavoring to accommodate with Nancy, sees them together through her window and accepts they are dating. Joyce and Container track down Terry Ives, who is mental and watched out for by her sister Becky. Becky makes sense of that Terry was a Task MKUltra member while unwittingly pregnant, and accepts Brenner captured her girl Jane upon entering the world because of her alleged supernatural and clairvoyant capacities. Nancy and Jonathan reserve weapons to kill the Demogorgon, speculating that it is drawn in by blood. Steve gets into a fistfight with Jonathan subsequent to calling Nancy a whore. 11 strolls into a supermarket and shoplifts a few boxes of Eggo waffles. Looking for 11, Mike and Dustin are trapped by a gathering of menaces, however, are protected by her, as she utilizes her powers to break one Harriser's arm after he endeavors to kill Mike. 11 falls and was asked by Brenner to contact the Demogorgon and, in her dread, unintentionally opening the entryway. She sorrowfully owns up to Mike that she is answerable for permitting the Demogorgon to enter this aspect. Lucas sees specialists who have found 11 getting ready to snare Mike's home. Part 7, The Bathtub.
Lucas cautions Mike that specialists are looking for 11. Mike, Dustin, and 11 escape the house. 11 supernaturally flips one of the specialists' vans that impedes their way, and the children escape. Lucas accommodates with Mike and 11, and the children stow away from the specialists. Nancy and Jonathan uncover their insight into the Demogorgon to Joyce and Container. The gathering contacts the children, and everybody meets at the buyer's home. Joyce and Container understand that 11 is Jane Ives. The gathering requests that 11 quest for Will and Thorn clairvoyantly, however her previous accomplishments have debilitated her. They break into the center school and construct a stopgap tangible hardship tank to intensify 11's powers. 11 finds Spike dead and Will alive utilizing her clairvoyance, concealing in the topsy-turvy adaptation of his lawn post. Understanding that the door is in the cellar of the lab, Container and Joyce break into the lab, yet are captured by safety officers. Nancy and Jonathan head back to the Byers' home, wanting to bait and kill the Demogorgon, so it can't slow down Joyce and Container. In the topsy-turvy, the Demogorgon breaks into Will's stronghold. Part 8, The Upside Down. Container, tormented by the passing of his little girl Sarah from malignant growth years sooner, surrenders 11th area to Brenner, who in return permits Container and Joyce to enter the topsy-turvy to safeguard Will. Nancy and Jonathan slice their hands to draw in the Demogorgon at the Byers' home. Steve, planning to apologize to Jonathan about their battle, shows up similarly as the Demogorgon shows up. Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan battle the Demogorgon and light it ablaze, compelling it to withdraw to the topsy-turvy. In the meantime, 11 and the young men conceal in the center school when Brenner and his representatives show up to capture 11. She kill Mose. Plot synopsis. The story follows the portion of the plot that advances with the vanishing of an 11-year-old kid, Will Byers, at a modest community in Indiana named Hawkins. This is trailed by a thorough quest for Will by his companions and colleagues Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, as well as the inclusion of the town's adorable sheriff named Jim Container and Will's mom, Joyce Byers, played by Winona Ryder. In the midst of the continuous examination, the show presents 11, a young lady with shaved head having psychokinetic capacities, the seminality of whose job contained in her fellowship with the young men bit by bit disentangles diverse of secrets by taking the watchers on a ride to horrible logical trials, maturing youth sentiments, homicidal beasts, and elective domains. Exceptional science between the characters adding to the profound profundity of the plotline and sprinkled with 80s suggestive fills in as the series rescuer from being possibly seen as a commonplace science fiction story finishing in the palatable obliteration of the malicious Demogorgon. All things being equal, the watchers get to know profound intricacies and speculations perceivable in the relationship of the Guardians with their youngsters, be it the much-praised traditional maternal friendship showed by Joyce Byers in uncovering the mysteries of Will's non-appearance, unspooling the lethargic personal circumstances of Lonnie Byers and Dr. Brennan's relentless journey for 11, a practical subject of logical investigations that kept the crowd pondering and scrutinizing the holiness of a parent-youngster relationship. These significant subplots, wrongly considered tales, have catalyzed the series' profundity in the midst of the approaching picture of the destructive Demogorgon. Who is a Demogorgon, and what does it address? Demogorgon is a ruthless animal that is the essential bad guy in More Bizarre Things Season 1 as well as the ensuing seasons. Demogorgon represents evil, in horde in various angles, kidnapping of Will Byers, benefiting from Spike, and prompting savagery all through the town is the notorious activities that are declarations to this upheld status after the entryways to the topsy-turvy were coincidentally opened. The animal was at last decimated by 11, trailed by a fruitful fixing of the whole between the real and the elective world. Inside this texture of the story, More Odd Things Season 1 figures out how to put the ideas of good and detestable, and one of the vital manners by which it is embraced is the depiction of experience growing up honesty as fellowship showed by Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will portrayed through a thorough mission for the last option following his snatching. The relationship of the previous threesome with 11 amplifies the guiltlessness and warmth of the bond that the series endeavors through their companionship. In this sense, the show fastidiously and effectively underlines how the caring kinship of young life as represented through the connection between the youth heroes of the show is the main thrust behind the status to overcome Demogorgon. All through the series, the crowd thinks of themselves as applauding and establishing them and, in the process cementing their negative discernment about the shrewd images, Demogorgon being the exacting portrayal. Together, the profound intricacies and the youth guiltlessness pervaded all through the show fortify the polarities as to the built ideas of good and insidiousness and subsequently end the consummation of More Unusual Things Season 1, obliteration of the Demogorgon by 11, on a somewhat palatable note. Generally, More Abnormal Things Season 1 is astounding and, as far as I might be concerned, set the bar for what TV programs